main components. The new type of glass requires the use of both quartz sand and sodium carbonate as the main component. All measures are in meters cubed. The component must use a volume of quartz sand equal to this expression. The company must use a volume of sodium carbonate equal to this expression. And the total amount of the two components must equal this. The first thing I'm going to do is factor the quartz sand expression. This is difference of squares. Square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 81 is 9. 4x plus 9 times 4x minus 9. On the bottom here, this looks like a perfect square trinomial, but it's not because the middle term isn't 2 times 2 times 3, which would be 12, and it's 13. I'm looking for the factors of 4. I'm thinking 4 and 1, and the factors of 9, I'm thinking 9 and 1. 4 times 1 is 4, 9 times 1 is 9. 4 plus 9 is 13. This does work. I'm going to cancel the 4x plus 9s. I'm left with 4x minus 9 over x plus 1. The next step, down here I'm going to factor this. I have an x common up here. I'm going to factor out the x. I have x times x plus 1. Down here, this is a perfect square trinomial. X plus 1 times itself. I'm just going to write it out like that, then cancel an x plus 1 in both cases. We're left with x over x plus 1. These two are going to add up to give this. I'm going to write that. 4x minus 3 over 2x minus 5 is equal to the sum of these two. 4x plus 9 over x plus 1 plus x over x plus 1. I have a common denominator. I'm going to add the tops, keep the bottom. The 4x adds to the x, giving us 5x minus 9 over x plus 1. I'm going to cross multiply. The x plus 1 comes up and multiplies the 4x minus 3. So I have 4x minus 3 times the x plus 1, and the 2x minus 5 comes up and multiplies the 5x minus 9. The 5x minus 9 times 2x minus 5. The 4x multiplies the x, giving us 4x squared. The 4x multiplies the 1, giving us 4x. The minus 3 multiplies the x, giving us minus 3x. The minus 3 multiplies the 1, giving us minus 3. The 5x multiplies the 2x, giving us 10x squared. The 5x multiplies the negative 5, giving us negative 25x. The negative 9 multiplies the 2x, giving us negative 18x. The negative 9 multiplies the negative 5, giving us positive 45. Put the 4x and the minus 3x together, giving us 4x squared plus x minus 3. And here the negative 25 and the negative 18 add together to give negative 43x. Then I want to subtract 4x squared from both sides. That gives me 6x squared. Subtract x from both sides, or 1x from both sides. Negative 43 minus 1x is negative 44x. Then I want to add 3 to both sides. 45 plus 3 is 48. There's a common factor of 2 here, so I'm going to divide every term by 2, giving us 3x squared minus 22x plus 24. Then I'm going to factor that. The factors of 3 are 3 and 1. The factors of 24 are, there's a whole bunch of them, but I'm going to try 4 and 6. The 3 times the 6 is 18. 4 times x is 4. 18 and 4 is 22. We want to get negative 22. These two terms have to be negative to make that happen. We end up with negative 18 and negative 4 add up to give negative 22. This does work. 3x minus 4 must be 0. Some of the time, and x minus 6 must be 0 the rest of the time. So I'm going to solve this first. Add 4 to both sides. 4 is equal to 3x, and then divide both sides by 3. I get 4/3 is equal to x, or 1.3 repeating is x. If I do the x minus 6 is equal to 0, I add 6 to both sides, x is equal to 6. We know that this is our volume, right? The total amount of the two main components must be equal to this expression, or I could add these two together. We're going to get the same value. If x is 6, right, if I take this expression and replace the x with 6, I end up getting 4 times 6 minus 3 is 24, take away 3 is 21, over 2 times 6 is 12, take away 5 is 7. We get 21 over 7, which is 3 meters cubed. If I do it with the 4/3, I have 4 times 4/3 minus 3. 4 times 4 divided by 3, take away 3, gives us 2.3 repeating. Then the bottom, 2 times 4 all over 3, take away 5, and look what happens. I get a negative 2.3. 2.3 repeating divided by negative 2.3 repeating is negative 1. You can't have a volume of negative 1. It doesn't make sense, which means the 4/3 doesn't make sense. X has to be 6, meaning our volume has to be 3 meters cubed. The next step, the secondary. Factory also requires the use of aluminum oxide as a secondary component. They can obtain aluminum oxide in the form of a solid rectangular prism having this as its volume and a base area of 3 meters squared. We have to remember the base area is 3 meters squared. The block of aluminum oxide has a height of y plus 3. We know y plus 3 is evenly going to divide into this, and we could use long division. Notice this is already set up for grouping to factor, and if we group to factor. It's a little bit faster. I'm going to pull out the y squared, and we have y squared times y plus 3. Here I'm going to pull out -1, and we have y plus 3. Y plus 3 is now the common factor up here. I pull that out, and we're left with y squared minus 1. The y plus 3's cancel, because I'm dividing it, and I'm dividing the total volume by the y plus 3. We end up with y squared minus 1, meaning we're going to get y plus 1 times y minus 1 as the dimensions of the bottom. We know that the area of the bottom must be 3. This times this must be 3. I'm just going to say y squared minus 1. This step is equal to 3. Subtract 3 from both sides. I get y squared minus 4 is equal to 0. That's difference of squares. Y plus 2 is equal to 0. Y minus 2 is equal to 0, which gives me y plus 2 is equal to 0. Y minus 2 is equal to 0. Y is equal to minus 2, which doesn't make sense. And here y is positive 2. Y minus 2 doesn't make sense. Minus 2 minus 1 is minus 3 as a dimension. Down here, that doesn't make sense. You're not going to have a negative dimension. Here, you would have -1 as one of your dimensions. Doesn't make sense. Y is equal to -2 doesn't make sense. Y equals 2 does make sense. We know that the volume of this block, for the volume of the block, I'm going to take all the dimensions, multiply them together. So I have the y plus 1 times the y minus 1 times the y plus 3. That's the volume. Or I could take this expression up here and replace the y with 2. Either way, you're going to get 3 times 1 times 5 is 15 meters cubed for the volume of the block. The next part says the factory needs to ensure that the total amount of the main and secondary components does not exceed 5 meters cubed. The block of aluminum oxide, we have 15 meters cubed. We're only going to be using a portion of that. We know that the volume of sand and sodium carbonate was 3 meters cubed. The total can't exceed 5. We add 3 of the sand and sodium carbonate, we must have 2 aluminum oxides. I'm just calling it x. 3 plus x, and subtract the 3 from both sides. X is less than or equal to 2. The maximum amount of aluminum oxide we could use is 2 meters cubed. 2 out of 15, I'm going to divide that on my handy dandy calculator. 2 out of 15 is 0.13 repeating as a percent. Multiply that by 100, that's 13.3 repeating percent. What percentage of the aluminum oxide block can the factory use? 13.33%. And that's it for the ES. Have a good day.